Welcome back to WRPL. It's the podcast where we're talking about all the things we were watching, reading, playing, and listening to. My name's Ben.
And I'm Steve.
How's it going, Steve? Happy New Year, or almost Happy New Year.
Almost Happy New Year.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this will actually come out the very, very end of 2023 or the very, very beginning of 2024. We'll see. This is just kind of a grab bag episode. Lots of loose things that maybe didn't make our list in the previous episode. Main topic, probably Wonka and Iron Claw, but we'll see how it goes. Let's roll first.
2.
Jesus fuck. Way to end the year.
Yeah, well, end on a bad note, begin the new year on a good note.
Okay.
So, let's see what we got here. 3. Ooh.
Oh, this is the lowest we've both rolled.
Honestly, though, I think this is the weakest year in movies for a while. So it might
Well,
be
wait till
fitting.
next year. I saw a list of like the biggest things coming out, and it was someone thinking, do I want to renew my Regal Pass? Is it worth it?
Mm.
And they're like, there's like 2 bangers that like I know will be good, and everything else is just you don't know. And is it worth it? I'm still gonna renew. I like movies too much, and it's too good of a deal.
Yeah.
And I got to see a lot of things I wouldn't have before. But yeah, this may not have been a great year. Just wait till next year.
Can't wait.
So, couple of things. First off, finished Dead Space. I brought it back.
Oh, good.
I didn't realize I was kind of so far into it, and it's like, oh fuck it, I got like 3 chapters left. Let me just knock it out. Good times. Had fun. I used your normal gun, the blades, the force gun, and then I decided to keep the flamethrower. I didn't upgrade it a whole lot because it is considered one of the worst weapons in the game. But there was something about it that I kind of enjoyed having, especially for the real little crawly things that burst out at people. That was helpful. But yeah, I had a good time. I'm glad I played it on like one easier than normal because I wasn't trying to test my skill. I already beat it normally, and there are some parts that are really fucking tough. They're even on the easy, they just keep throwing waves and waves at you, and it's partially my fault. I don't use the stasis freeze nearly as much as I should. And I know, like, there are times when I feel cool. You know the guys with the big, like, explodey arms that they drag? You shoot off the arm, you grab it, and you throw it back at them. Ooh, that's a fun thing to do. But with the force gun, the secondary thing is like a gravity well that pulls everybody together. I use that so much. I gravity well everyone and then saw blade the whole thing and just go up and down and chop them all up. And it made things a lot easier. Great game, fun game. My least favorite fucking monster, though. The little babies with the 3 tentacles that come up, they are the absolute worst.
Super annoying.
Because even with that force gun, you can shoot them like 4 times and it won't kill them. Like, you have to shoot them with your plasma cutter.
Yeah, of all the creatures in it, it should be the one thing you can kill in one hit, but you can't.
And it's one of the first things you come across. And then they
move quick.
They can jump when you're in 0G, and they shoot you from far away. I fucking hate those guys.
But good game.
Yeah. What do you got? We got a lot of stuff that we both have finished. So maybe we'll save those, and just like the back half of this will be both of us talking instead of one of us talking at each other.
All right. So okay. One thing I'm pretty sure you didn't watch. I watched Maestro, the new Bradley Cooper film.
No.
It's getting all the awards attention and everything. Currently streaming on Netflix.
You sure? Because I've been hearing awards for maybe like her, Carey Mulligan.
Well, I'll say that I did not care for this film all that much.
Yeah.
And it's not because it's bad per se. It's just that it didn't have anything to say, in my opinion.
Per se. No, it's just said per se and have anything to say.
Oh.
All right. Moving on.
Anyway, sorry. I think because his performance is so big, I can see why it's a turnoff to some people, where it just seems like maybe it seems like overacting. I've never seen footage of Leonard Bernstein, so I don't know how close his interpretation of him as a person is. But I would say that his performance didn't bother me. I think the performances were good, and I think this movie is like beautifully shot, and I liked that it was kind of told in like three different aspect ratios, in a sense
Oh,
of
that's
just
cool.
like I'm sorry, not different aspect ratios, but like the first third of the movie is all black and white. It's young Leonard Bernstein and him meeting Carey Mulligan, and he met Carey Mulligan, not whoever his wife was back then.
She's a time traveler.
Yeah, she's just immortal, and just kind of like how they fell in love, and what they saw in each other, and then the second third is he's now a famous person, and it's in color, and it's them like raising a family, and his sort of like infidelity because he's also a gay man, or
Hmm.
at least bisexual, and her, like, she knows that, but it's also her struggling to deal with, like, do I stay with this man with my children or whatever, and do I let him do these things? Like, they seemingly on dates with each other and stuff.
Hmm.
And then, the final bit at the end is like the ending of their relationship, and him as a very old man. But anyway, so Bradley Cooper is super talented behind the camera. I think
Hmm.
he's uh, a great director and has a great eye. There's one sequence in this movie that is like I thought was fantastic in a church. It just the way it's shot, and the music that's performed, like all the music. I've never seen I don't think I've seen a biopic where like the score is done by the guy who you're telling the story about.
Okay. Oh,
Like
yeah.
we've seen plenty of biopics of like Johnny Cash, where yeah, his music is throughout it, but
Hmm.
that's not the score. It's
Yeah.
like uh, and then I had to watch it with subtitles. So it's like there's a scene near the beginning where he's walking with his wife, and the title of the song is like "With My Wife" or what. So it's like music that he dedicated to her, and it's like playing at the beginning of their relationship, and
Okay.
it's really
Nice.
nice stuff. Yeah, it's really cool.
I bet
Uh,
Bradley Cooper's like, thank you for doing this in the past. You've made my job so much easier.
yeah, and because his music is so fantastic, like the score for this is fantastic. There's only just a few little musical bits that are from like other people. Um, and it's kind of a funny joke at the end where he's like pulling up in his car, and it's that song. I think it's the Leonard Bernstein.
Oh, yeah.
Is it the end?
End of the
Is
world
that
as we
song?
know
Okay,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So he even got a shout out from that. Anyway, but the big problem, so like everything screams like this should be the front runner for the Oscar,
Hmm.
except it doesn't do anything all that interesting with the story. Like the movie's pitched as, oh, it's the love story between Leonard Bernstein and his wife, but you don't really like get all that much about the relationship on like why it worked. It's just kind of just, oh, they just loved each other,
Hmm.
and why she put up with things, and it doesn't go into, well, was it the time, was it she just felt insecure, did she not want to be alone? It doesn't really do
Hmm.
anything with that. It doesn't really show him, there's not a scene where he's like hunched over his papers and the music notes are coming off, and you just see like it's not about his
Yeah.
genius. You
Okay.
see him do drugs and stuff, but it's not about his like rise and fall with
So it's a
drugs.
very different biopic
Yeah, it's a
than.
biopic that has like all the beats of a biopic, but doesn't delve into any of them,
Hmm.
and so that's the issue. Like you see him when he performs this big, especially the church sequence. Like he's so into it, and he's sweaty, and he looks gross, but it's clearly he's so passionate about music. But he never really talks about why he's so passionate about music. There's no scene of him as a young boy in some small town where he's like,
Snuck into a church and heard
yeah,
someone.
playing the piano, and
Yeah.
he's just like, he started practicing, and just, this kid's a prodigy. He's
Yeah.
got it. There's none of that. Like the young, like it starts out and he's 25, and he basically the opening scene of the movie, or the second scene of the movie, is him after he just completed his first like major concert because he took over for someone because they were sick, and that's kind of
Okay.
like what shot him into fame.
Okay.
Uh, so we pretty much from the get go of the movie, he's already famous, but we never see him like necessarily deal with paparazzi or deal with crazy fans. Or so it has nothing to say about fame. It has nothing to say about being honest with yourself or the craziness of music or whatever. And then spoiler, because I know you're not gonna watch this movie.
I don't care.
So it gets to the end. Carey Mulligan finds out she has cancer, and then uh, literally she finds out she has cancer. It's like 5 minutes later, she's dead.
Oh.
And then there's 5 minutes
Yada
later,
yada yada. Her,
they,
her old
they
death.
like it just breezed kind of right over it. And you can tell like Leonard Bernstein really loved her or whatever. You know, he's like he's canceling stuff. I'm staying with her and till the end. But she dies, but like there's no funeral scene. There's no like
Hmm.
him reconcile with it. So it's her dying, and the very next scene is him like years later, like coaching young up and coming conductors,
Okay.
and then it cuts to him with the student he was helped conducting, like dancing on the dance floor and like grinding up on each other. So it's just like the movie's about their love, and the
Uh-huh.
second she dies, 30 seconds later into the film, you have him grinding up on another dude at a club, and then the
Huh.
movie just kind of ends, and it's just like, well, what does that say about their relationship? And
Yeah.
it doesn't show him dying. It doesn't show like Leonard Bernstein's effect on like society because of like how great was Leonard Bernstein, and you
Uh-huh.
can hear his music today and whatever. It doesn't say anything. It's a biopic without any real substance for me. And it's like if
Hmm.
you're gonna focus on the relationship, I think you needed more time with Carrie Mulligan, and I don't know. I didn't care by the end. It's like what
Damn.
was the whole point of this? What was so interesting about this man's life that made his story worth it? Other than yeah, his music was fantastic.
Yeah.
But what was it about this man that made him so special?
So
Because it doesn't even like. Maybe you could go into the talk about the struggles of being gay at this time and like how that would have outcasted him, but it's like it seems like everyone kind of fucking knew and no one really cared. Like, yeah, he's an artsy person. They're all gay. I don't know, but no one seemed to really have a problem with it. So it just I didn't get what the struggle was.
No, that's a shame. Well, I'm glad I didn't bother because I was worried that was going to be our Christmas holiday watch.
There's great scenes in it. There's great talent in front and behind the camera, but the story was lacking.
I think this is just Bradley Cooper, especially being his directorial debut, making his mark.
Well,
About
it's the second film. He did A Star Is Born.
Oh, that's right. That's right. But this is just one of those things that down the line, when he eventually comes out of the closet, it'll be like, oh, the parallels to this great guy is also the same as me. It's gonna happen. Give me.
Sure.
That's my 2024 prediction. He'll come out.
But I mean, I think it. My guess, unless there's a movie that I'm not really thinking of, it's this versus Oppenheimer for Best Picture this year. And the only reason I think that this would have any legs is because it's about a famous person who like did music for West Side.
They love them biopics.
Who like did music for West Side Story and like all these famous films. Which like that was the other thing. It's like, oh look, here's a movie about a guy who made a bunch of famous music for movies. You never saw him like on set or not. I don't know if he has to be on set, but like you never saw him working on those pieces.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it's like it's produced by Martin Scorsese, produced by Spielberg. Bradley Cooper's doing all the press release and like talking to Spike Lee and talking about like this is
Hollywood.
Hollywood.
How's he talking to Spike Lee?
It was a Variety Directors on Directors.
Oh, okay.
Thing. And they're just jerking each other off, which is fine. They're trying to sell a movie.
Hollywood.
I get it. But it just seems like this has all the makings of the Oscar campaign to make it win.
Mm-hmm.
But like critics aren't really responding to it, and audiences aren't really responding to it. So like I think that's what's really hurting. Like if it was a critical darling, it'd probably be done.
Yeah.
But I think there's no one up against Nolan this year. I think it's going to be Oppenheimer.
God, I hope not. I'll take anything. Find some small movie that didn't have a huge, like say The Holdovers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've heard it's great. I'd rather something like that win, something that like nobody saw than Oppenheimer. If you're just looking at technical stuff, sure, I guess, but that was a story I just was not interested in. I'm the only one, though. It seems to be everyone's fucking favorite movie. But.
I've been watching quite a few best of years, and pretty much across the board, it's all Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
So
no. I forgot to mention up top, but Tom Wilkinson died today.
I saw that.
75. Yeah. I know him best from Batman Begins as Carmine Falcone. I think his kind of big appearance in American movies were
he was in Rush Hour.
No,
2?
I don't know. I've never seen the Rush Hours.
I think he was in Rush Hour 1.
Yeah, never seen him. So,
okay.
The Full Monty was kind of like his big breakout, and his last thing on his IMDb is the Full Monty remake sequel. He's in that as well. So that's kind of a nice come full circle.
He was the dad in a movie called The Last Kiss, starring Zach Braff.
Okay.
That I think I was the only person who saw it.
That was his follow-up after Garden State, right?
He didn't direct it or anything.
Oh, okay. What's the brunette in it?
Rachel Bilson.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that
It
cover
was
in
it was a
Blockbuster.
Paul Haggis script. I don't
Okay.
remember the director.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's just like I don't know. I actually kind of like that movie, but
Okay.
no one
Oh,
else saw
yeah.
it.
But yeah, so R.I.P. I mean, he's just one of
Yeah,
those that guys.
yeah.
He's in Michael
All-time great
Clayton and
character actor.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a Richard Jenkins type.
exactly. Okay, I'll go next. I saw Aquaman 2 or Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom.
All right, let's
Uh,
wrap this up.
not very good, but not a huge piece of shit.
Sure.
It's like the first one was kind of fun and different. We hadn't seen anything like that
I
before.
remember not hating the first
Yeah,
one.
I mean,
So,
even my roommate said she kind of liked it. That she saw it with you. I think you
oh,
took her to it. Um, but it's just so uninspired. It is just a by the numbers, stop a bad guy from doing a thing. There's nothing like if Zack Snyder's DC universe was continuing, we were going to get an Aquaman 3, we were getting more Justice League stuff. I'm sure this would have gone a different way
mhm.
because I expected Black Manta to come back and kill Mira, kill his baby like it happened in the comic. He loses his hand, and especially with
They kill his baby in the
yeah, I
comics.
believe they kill his baby as well. And so
Jesus.
I mean, he has a kid in this comic, but he doesn't have any.
Sure, sure. Yeah.
There's no such thing as canon in comics anymore. It's a you do whatever the fuck you want. But they had killed his baby, or they would kill Mira. He loses his hand to save his baby, or Mira dies
Mhm.
because he saves the baby and not her. Kill his dad, kill his mom, but like everybody's in it except for Willem Dafoe. He couldn't make it back, so he's not in it. But
I forgot he was in the first one.
yeah, everybody survives. Stop the bad guy from doing a thing. I don't know. It was a movie I would love if you did see that we could
Uh-huh.
really pick apart.
If
But
I'm bored one day and it's on something or
no,
other, I might.
don't bother.
Okay, great.
You wouldn't hate this, but you would go like, oh, see,
The only reason I would watch it is for Patrick Wilson.
yeah. And Patrick Wilson, he still gives it his all. He gives it his all in everything. I
I
love
fucking
Patrick
love
Wilson.
Patrick Wilson. Yeah, I wish he had a stronger filmography because he's the
Yeah.
best part of like every movie he's in. He's
Yeah.
so good.
He's really, really good. And I like him. Even he survives this. Black Manta's the only one that really dies. Even,
Mm.
what's his face from Fresh Off the Boat in the interview?
Randall Park.
Randall Park. Like, even he survives. Like, everybody
Randall
fucking.
Park's in this.
Yeah, I remember he helped Black Manta in the last one because he was trying to get Atlantean technology and he built the suit for Black Manta. And
Don't remember that at
yeah,
all.
well, he's in it, but now he's kind of regretting teaming up with Black Manta because Black Manta is gonna use this stuff called like Oricamakiman or something. I can't remember. It's an energy thing that they use, but
Unobtainium. Got it.
it's pretty much an unobtainium. But if you use it, it releases a bunch of greenhouse gases, and so like Black Manta's using it, and it's killing the planet, and then yeah, blah blah. And then the most egregious part is at the very end. They do Black Panther and Iron Man in this movie, where Aquaman is standing at a podium saying, Atlantis is real. We exist. We are here to help and share our technology with you. And then someone asks oh, well, who are you? And like, I'm Aquaman. You and jumps off or whatever. It's the exact end to
Does he do the goofy?
the
The
goofy
goofy
yell.
oh.
I don't remember if he does it there, but he ends it with I'm Aquaman, just like Iron Man ends his first movie. So bizarre. I don't know
Yeah, but
why they
like
chose that.
I could be wrong. Didn't the whole world already know about Aquaman?
You would think
Because
because
like
he did
there, I mean, I
Justice League
know
stuff.
in the Justice League movie there was like rumors of the Fishman or whatever, and
Hmm.
that's where Batman like found him because
Yeah.
at least some people knew of this guy. But I thought once the first Aquaman movie came out, it was like when he showed up. I'm not saying that the John Cena show, what was it called?
Peacemaker.
Peacemaker, yeah, is like necessarily hardcore canon, but they're talking about Aquaman and stuff.
Hmm.
Like it seems like
Yeah.
once the Justice League happened and they fought
Yeah.
Doom
Ocean
or whatever.
Master sent a wave of garbage onto the mainland in the first one and
Yeah,
announced, get the fuck out of our ocean. So I think it was more of him saying, Atlantis is still around. We need to work together, other both because both our words will die. And if you don't know who I am, I'm the king of Atlantis, and I'm Aquaman. Like it was a formal introduction. People may have said there was some. Oh yeah, because even in Aquaman, there's there's like bikers getting selfies with them at the beginning. You think they're
Yeah.
going to be a fight and stuff?
If there was
It doesn't
a
make
guy
any
who
sense.
looked like him, and he's also a fish person and has superpowers, that would be what the only thing the internet would talk about.
Yeah.
Like it wouldn't be a big announcement, you
Hmm.
know. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, I would say I had a better time watching The Flash, whether it's because it's like
Oof.
better made or it's such a shit show. This is so boring and by the numbers that like DC was in such a rush to catch up with Marvel that they now caught up with Marvel's mediocre Phase 4. This would be their mediocre stuff. But it's done and dead, and we're all gonna move on. So let's move on.
All right. Did you watch Saltburn?
No, what is it available on
It's on
something?
Prime.
Oh, okay, pretty good. I really wanted to go see
No.
this. Now
Well, it's hard to talk about without spoiling
you're
it.
talking about the bathtub scene.
I'm talking about multiple scenes.
That's what I've heard. That
Uh,
it's just like a lot. If you go in blind,
yeah,
you don't know what it's about. It's a lot.
I pretty much went in. Well, I pretty much went in blind. Like I saw the trailer or
Hmm.
whatever, which I knew it was, you know, this story of a kid going to this fancy house for the summer with Jacob Elordi. But it definitely took turns that I did not see coming.
I don't no spoilers for
Yeah, I
this. I'll
won't.
still watch it.
Here, the only thing I'll say is shot beautifully. It's from the writer director of Promising Young Woman, which I didn't
Yeah,
realize till after I watched it. And I was
yeah.
like, oh, like I really liked Promising Young
Hell
Woman.
yeah.
Um, this is not Promising Young Woman.
Hmm.
Promising Young Woman is, I feel like, a lot smaller, but kind of in the same uh, themes and tone, I'll
Okay.
say. But where like Promising Young Woman was like kind of fun, this is just kind of gross
Hmm.
uh, for multiple reasons. And I'll just say the third act really kind of feels like it comes out of nowhere, and just ends in a way that I just didn't really care for.
Hmm.
Which next week or whenever we get back together, I'm
Sure,
sure we'll
sure.
do a deep dive on it. I would say you don't need to watch it, but it feels like the movie that young people would talk about, and like you haven't seen
And
it.
I gotta stay connected to my youths.
Yeah, it's like it just for the sheer audacity of some of the things you'll see in this.
Okay.
Uh, that might be worth a watch to you, but I don't suspect you'll like the movie.
Okay.
That being said, I was never bored. I found it uh, kind of entertaining. I'm glad I watched it, but at the same time, I'm like, I can't say that I think this is a good movie.
It wouldn't make your top 10 list.
It would not.
Okay.
I
Well,
thought like I was going
Aquaman
to
2
squeeze
wouldn't
in
have.
three more movies this week that was
Yeah.
going to be like, well, revisiting my list,
Uh,
but only one is
yeah.
going to make my
Oh,
list.
really? Okay. Yeah, I didn't see anything new after our last episode that would have gone on the best or the worst. It's all just been kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Okay, well, let's. Oh, yeah, I got one more that I know you didn't see that I want you to see this. I want to do a full episode.
All right, fine. I'll fucking watch Gremlins too.
No, Rebel Moon.
Yeah, I'm not
I
watching that.
and I don't blame you because it's not good.
Yeah.
But actually for the first 45 minutes, I was into it. I'm like, I don't know what everybody's saying. This is kind of fun. Yes, it's just ripping off Star Wars so blatantly, but I'm fine with it. A lot of things take inspiration from other stuff.
Sure.
But as soon as she leaves to go collect her heroes and they do a Seven Samurai or
Hmm.
Magnificent Seven or even fucking Bug's Life, it's that story again. Bad guys coming to hurt us. I got to go get these people who are willing to fight for us, and we're gonna be these rebellion
Hmm.
and take our planet back. And they just go, well, who do you know? I know a guy over here. Let's go check it out. He has a scene where he rides a griffin. Cool, you're on the team. Where do we go next? I know a swords lady. Okay, swords lady, what's your deal? Oh, I'm fighting a weird spider woman who's stealing children. Cool, go ahead and kill her, and let's get back on the mission. Cool. Well, who do you know? Well, I know an old general who used to fight for the bad with the bad guys. He'd be great on our team. Cool, let's get him. Hey, what's your deal? Let me tell you a couple of stuff. Let me take a bath in front of you, and then more of like a forced scrub down. But okay, cool. You're on the team now. And oh shit, we're 2 hours in. We got to wrap this up. Big fight with the bad guy. Good guys look like they win for a moment. they clone the bad guy so he could come back in the next one, and we'll get the rest of the movie sometime later.
Hmm.
It is definitely not a movie. It is the first half of a season condensed into a movie.
Hmm.
This really could have sat and you could expand on these characters, but it's just go, go, go. And you just see all the things that, like, they, and every time you have a space movie with aliens and stuff, you got to have your own cantina scene.
Hmm.
So they walk into this bar, and instead of like, okay, we'll do a googly eye guy and a tentacle guy, just like basic stuff, they're like, we're gonna make this the most extreme ever. So there's this weird green lady with huge devil horns, and then there's this crazy parasitic bug that's hooked up to a human so it can talk through the human, and then there's this robot god being of light. It's like the most extremes you could do. And like, well, let's have an elephant man and a rat man and a weird blobby thing. Like,
But they're
no.
all drinking Bud Lights.
They're like, we got to do Star Wars, blood on acid. One of those things. Like, we got to crank it to 11. And it's embarrassing. The lead, she's just a scally sourpuss the whole time. She's not very good. I like her story, but I guess it's kind of ripped off from Warhammer. It's the best way I can say it. This movie is a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, and then they took that copy and went, "Ooh, this is really blurry and muddled. Let's let's let AI try to rebuild it from scratch." And so it does, and you go, oh, it's familiar to that thing. I did it, but it's not exact.
Hmm.
Well, let's sharpen it up. Let's laminate it. Let's put a fancy frame on it. Damn, that's a cool looking picture, but it's just a slick copy of a copy of a copy. And the apologists out there will say, well, this isn't the full movie. We're going to get the rated R version that's 3 hours long, and that will tell the real story. Then we'll get part two, and that probably won't be very good. But when we get the rated R version of that, we'll get the real story, and only then can you truly say if it's bad. And hey, if by the end it is cool and good, awesome. But you can't force people to watch like shit versions with the promise that something better is coming.
Yeah.
The bad guys are straight up Nazis. Star Wars was a little more subtle with it, but they look like Nazis, and then there's weird space witches with them, and they're like, we got to make them the most evil, vile thing. What do we have them do? Let's have them, rape a young girl, and we're all going to take turns and make them the most vile, disgusting human beings. Uh, it's it's just so obvious, and you know where it's going, and one fun thing, you got two Dario Naharises in it. You had the original and the one who replaced him,
That's
like
funny.
acting in a scene. And I felt so dumb because I was like, oh, he's from Game of Thrones. Oh, yeah, he's also from Game of Thrones. And not putting together that they're the same fucking person. Um, but yeah, I think this will be someone's guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
You'll watch this because it's slick, it's shiny, you like crazy aliens, and uh, like
If the
like
Mystery
a
Science Theater guys were still going on, but like, 40 years from now when they're doing, you won't believe some of the stuff that we made
yeah,
back in the 2020s.
it's
This will be
like
one of those movies
it's
they'd
like
be ripping apart.
what's the Valerium? Is that
Valerian, yeah.
and or Jupiter Ascending? Big concept
Yeah.
sci-fi that isn't very good, but you would watch them because you kind of remember some cool things about it.
I saw Valerian, and I don't remember hating it, but I don't remember a goddamn thing that happens in that movie.
Yeah,
Other than there was like a cool like market where you put
yeah,
on.
that first half
I
hour is fucking cool.
Yeah, there's some cool
And then
shit
as
there.
soon as like blob monster Rihanna shows up, it all starts going
Oh,
down.
I
Yeah,
forgot
I
about
forgot about
that.
that.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and Channing Tatum's weird dog monster, rollerblading through
I
space.
never saw Jupiter Ascending,
Oh,
so
it's really bad. But I think the worst thing about this is he's so confident that this is going to be the next Star Wars. It's like prequel bait up the wazoo. There's so much stuff like, did I tell you the story about this character from years ago? Well, let me give you like a five lines of what happened. But wouldn't you like to see that as a movie someday? Like, I'm going to be as vague as possible so we can flesh this shit out. There's a lot of that in there. So yeah, thumbs down. Not a good movie. Wouldn't make my worst of the year list. But I'll watch part
It
two.
sounds like it would make mine.
Yeah, probably. I don't think you would love it, but I don't know. Maybe it would just hit with you. Even I work with a guy who he's a Zack Snyder dude, and he was so hyped for this. Even he couldn't like justify it being good. He even watched it like a day later to try to like force himself to love it because he wanted to love it so bad, and he didn't like it. So yeah, not for everyone.
Uh, what? Do you have anything else that I haven't seen
No,
or read or played or anything? Because otherwise, we're
no,
just getting into our.
we got the final four things: Impact Winner, Blue Eye Samurai, Wonka, Iron Claw.
Yep. I have one thing, but it's kind of tied to another thing.
Okay,
Not really tied. It's whatever. It'll take 3 seconds.
do it.
But when we get to that one.
Oh, okay. I think let's do Impact Winter first.
Yeah.
It's I think the least consequential. This is season 2 of the vampires. They came out after a comet hit, blocked out the sun. Now vampires are running amok. I didn't like this season.
Yeah, I think the season was definitely weaker. I would basically listen to an episode on the way to work and on the way
Mm-hmm.
back. So it took me about a week or so to finish. And you know, I think I liked Humble John's character just because
Yeah,
that guy's voice is so
yeah,
scary. So I'm just imagining this like hulking beast of a vampire,
yeah.
which I thought it was very reminiscent of like the one of the big characters from Resident Evil that are
Yeah.
always kind of following you
Mm-hmm.
around.
But
So,
eloquent.
but eloquent, yeah, excellent speaking. Was a crusader. I was like, that's a cool backstory.
Mm-hmm.
He's just been the Queen's main soldier for a long time. Uh, but that being said, it took me a while to figure out who was because it's like almost a full only female cast,
Yeah.
and like yeah, they all have their own voices, but other than Hope I could tell
Mm-hmm.
instantly, but some of the female characters they all just kind of got jumbled up in my brain.
Yeah.
I was wait, who's talking? Because there's like a new girlfriend character, and then there's
Mm-hmm.
I think Penelope
Yep.
and whatever. So it took a while for me
And
to
then the one who's training, what's her name?
Darcy.
Darcy.
Yeah,
There,
Calliope? No, not Calliope.
Calliope?
Is it Calliope?
I'm not
I don't
sure.
fucking
And
know.
then you have the queen, and then you have the bad guy from the first one, his wife, who was like the psychiatrist.
Yeah,
You just have a lot of women characters,
yeah.
and they all sound the same.
Yeah. So it was kind of hard to follow like where I was or what was happening, or it took me a while to like get into the scene. You kill off Bella Ramsey, which is
Yeah,
sad because
that'll be a big moment if they adapt this into a
yeah.
show.
I mean, I think it could work as a show. I
Yeah.
think that's the problem as an audio form. There's times where I'm like, I really wish I could see the visual of this right
Mm-hmm.
now, especially when you have a badass chick wielding a sword cutting off vampires' heads. Like
Yeah.
I want to see that shit.
I want to see like the new girlfriend trying to like betray Penelope, and then Penelope like launching her off a cliff.
Hmm.
I They should have let her die. She didn't need to survive that.
And you told me this before I started season 2. I was like, oh yeah, she can turn into a lion or
Yeah,
something. I was
she
like,
did that in the first
and I was like,
book.
what? I don't remember that happening at all. But then Rook's turning into like a wolf or a
Yeah,
dog or something. I was like,
and the queen turns into a dragon.
yeah, I was like, oh, so they can like they're animorphs.
Yeah.
And I didn't remember that at all. But anyway,
I'd cut that in the
um,
adaptation. I'd cut that shit.
yeah. So I would say that I still enjoyed listening to season 2, and I liked what they did in, I think it was the final episode, the sort of alternate dream
Yes.
sequence kind of. Like
I liked
really,
and hated it.
yeah, it's like I've seen this thing done a bunch of times. That being said, I still like seeing it
Yeah.
because it's cool to see this alternate reality of the comet doesn't hit.
Mm-hmm.
Could I still, could I live this happy life? Is this real? If it's a dream, do I want to stay here?
Mm-hmm.
And then it gets to the end, and then it turns out I'm the queen.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I don't need that.
Yeah, prophecy and this rebirth of like, I'm the queen is me, and it'll probably happen again in the future. And she called the comet to come and hit the earth.
Yeah.
I don't like any of that.
No.
It gets
all
a little too fantasy, too supernatural. I just want it to be a straight horror.
Yeah. You can give me a queen vampire who has lived for thousands of years, and you give me no backstory as to like how she exists. Is she a demon from the nether realm?
Sure.
Can you drop hints of that? Sure. Is she a creature from space that like she was on the first asteroid that killed the dinosaurs? She laid
She
in
wrote it in.
She
Yeah.
wrote it, and she's just this being that has all the qualities of vampires, but you really don't know what she is.
Yeah.
Like, I'm fine with that. I don't need that explained to me. But this, like, oh, well, I may be magic because I can summon an asteroid and I can
Turn into a dragon.
Like, all this other shit, I don't really need. Will I listen to season 3?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah,
but
probably.
I need season 3 to be the final season.
Yeah.
Because after this season, I don't really care to continue for more years.
Yeah.
I'll do one more 12 episodes.
Where they're like, well, shit, it may be my sister, but she's this evil queen. If we kill her, maybe it will... Because I don't think they talk about, like, you kill the person who turns you, and then anybody they've turned turns back into human. I don't think they discussed any of that, but maybe there is something... Now that we have the asteroid knife thing that she had to get out of the cave, we could use that, destroy her, and then it will rid the world of vampires. So we got to do one last thing, but I'm so torn because it's my sister. Whatever.
Yeah.
But it needs to be done.
Agreed.
Okay.
So, C.
Yeah.
If I gave it a grade.
C. There's some good stuff, like the stuff with Bella Ramsey and which is Humble John.
Humble John, yeah.
But there are some. Especially when Humble John fights Penelope, and then he pulls her heart out and chucks it away, and she has to crawl to it, put it back in, and so visually, I think there would be a lot of interesting things to see, but all in all, kind of a boring story.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's talk. Let's move on. Let's talk Blue Eye Samurai.
Okay.
This movie's this show is fucking cool. I was lied to. I kept hearing it's an anime if John Wick was a samurai. And I was like, oh, okay, that sounds kind of cool. I can do that. Like, okay, is it John Wick because she's good at what she does and it's revenge? Is that the only John Wick thing about it?
Yeah, I wouldn't have compared this to John Wick. I can see where that comparison comes from, but I would not have
Is that just the most recent sort of...
It's Kill Bill if it was set in... feudal Japan.
Yeah, it definitely had more Tarantino vibes, especially with the music.
Yeah.
There's Kill Bill music in this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also not an anime. It's just an animated show. I don't know why people are calling it an anime. It's like an American production, and it's 100% CG.
Mm-hmm.
This is not an anime.
At least not traditional anime.
No,
there's probably animes that...
I'd say it's closer to What If in animation than it is to most animes.
Yeah, the reason I was against this show for a little bit, not necessarily against, but it wasn't like I had to watch it, was just because the art style, the animation style, wasn't something that I loved looking at.
It grows on you, I think.
But yeah, by the end of episode 2, I was kind of like, yeah, whatever, I'm into it, because I enjoyed those first 2 episodes so much. I was like, well, now I gotta see how this thing fucking ends. I thought this show was great. We didn't do a best of TV.
Yeah, this probably would have made my best of TV.
This would have made the best of TV.
Yeah, we did best of TV.
I don't remember anymore. My brain's fried.
2 weeks.
But, yeah, this would have made my list because I had a blast with this show.
Did you know it was a woman from, minute 1?
Immediately.
Okay. Yeah. It's I hope this isn't something that they keep going for the whole time and it's some big reveal later. I'm glad it was by the end of episode 1. It was that voice, the look, that's not a dude.
Yeah. Well, I think, had I not known who was playing Misu, I would have been like, oh, well, that's a chick anyway. But, I think from the opening credits, it lists, Maya Erskine, or however you say her name. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's the Pet 15 girl. This is... that doesn't mean she can't be playing a man from her voice or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I was like, this is going to be a woman doing this. Yeah. But yeah, this show was... I did not expect it to be as violent or as...
so much nudity in it.
A ton of nudity.
And not just boobs. Ding-dongs.
Bunch of ding-dongs. But yeah, this is a super adult show. If you have kids, do not let them watch it.
Prostitutes.
Yeah, it lends itself to a live-action adaptation pretty easily. There's some action stuff that... You couldn't really... You'd have to tone some stuff down. Mm-hmm. But, her backstory and everything is so tragic in, the best way.
Can I talk about her backstory real quick? I'm confused.
Okay.
We see her as a little kid and the hut burned down.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wait, no, her mom survived that. Wait,
So yeah,
did she survive? Because it sounded like they said like no, she did die. But then we meet her mom later.
so the hut burned down. She assumed her mom was dead because I think whoever also told, I'm sure like the townsfolk were like, your mom died, and
Mm-hmm.
you're a little kid, you're just gonna believe what adults tell
Yeah.
you. So she goes to live with the blacksmith, trains, grows
Mm-hmm.
up, is gonna go on her mission while she's out and about. Runs into her mom and discovers like, oh, my mom did die. She's like, yeah, I faked. They were gonna always keep coming after us, so I faked our
Okay.
like my death so they wouldn't come after me.
But I
But
thought in the final episode they said like, no, I specifically killed your mom, and I don't know, maybe I just misinterpreted
no,
something.
he's like, I specifically killed your real mom. The person who took care of you was just some. I think he was. Whether that's true or not, I don't really remember. It might have just been like, who fucking knows, man? That might have not been your real mom at all. But I think it
Uh,
was. He was implying like, if I was your dad, I would have killed your mom, and that was probably just some uh, maid or whatever who was taking care of you, pretending to
okay.
be your mom.
Okay.
Um, which could explain that lady's why she was such a bad person,
Yeah.
because she was just like, you're my meal ticket out of being a prostitute. I don't have to sell
Mm-hmm.
myself anymore. I'm gonna sell you off to a rich man who's gonna take care of us.
Yeah.
But I really liked all that
Oh
stuff of
yeah.
her like falling in love with this guy who like
Mm-hmm.
was older but cool with her not being traditionally pretty, and but they were both like good warriors and they respected each other. But then like
And just
him being embarrassed that she
yeah.
was better than him,
Yep.
and just like, well, fuck it, I'm gonna go tell everybody
But I
that
don't think he did. I think
yeah, I
he
don't
was
think he did
being
either. Yeah.
truthful.
But I liked that the show you couldn't 100%
Yeah.
tell because it's like, was it the mom? Was it him? And
Mm-hmm.
then the fact that like he kills her mom and then she just throws a knife at him. And it's just like, I just can't fucking deal
Yeah.
with any of you. It was like so good. But can I tell you my favorite part? And
Sure.
you can probably guess it.
Is it the siege on the castle when she's breaking in and has to go through all the like different
That's
trials?
all really
That's
fun.
all very good.
But when she gets the spike through the foot and she just kind of like hobbles along, I was like, come on, she's not
You're
going to be able
done.
to
Yeah,
like
I know.
compete with
She
everybody.
gets like in an episode earlier, she gets stabbed in the ribs by the like tiger claw
Hmm.
people, and then yeah, she takes like a few days to heal up with the dude in green. I can't remember his name.
Tigan.
Yes, and then she's back onto her mission. So
Yeah.
with these, you just have to go whatever.
Yeah. So, but that's my favorite part. So, in episode one, I think it is, she goes and fights Tigan
Mm-hmm.
for the first time, and she's starting to lose, and then she goes, "All right," and she does that classic anime thing of, "I'm going to take off these weighted bracelets
Yeah.
on her arms and legs," and I was like, "Oh, okay," and then she's able to win. But a few episodes later, turns out those bracelets also turn into a pole which she attaches her sword to.
Yeah.
Is the coolest fucking thing I've
Yeah,
seen
it
this
really
year.
is.
I love that it also had a second uh ability. I don't know the word I'm looking for. Function
Yeah.
other than, oh, this helps me train and keeps me fit, but also I use it to like extend my sword, so now I can fight a crowd. Is
Uh-huh.
so fucking cool.
Yeah.
Is it absurd? 100%. But I loved it.
And I like when she gets her sword stuck in a wall and there's like two guys left and they're like, we're not going to fight you. And she makes them go and like fetch her sword.
uh, but yeah, I the if I have one gripe with the show, I didn't care for the funny fat friend
Oh, really?
character.
Oh, I liked
Yeah,
him.
he's sweet. You need that one lighthearted character in a show where everyone's kind of like, I just want to kill everybody and
Yeah.
is super dour. You need someone to be the moral compass of the
Hmm.
character who's like losing her moral compass because she's solely focused on the revenge. So I get why he's there. I just I'm just so used to that. It's either like the funny fat friend or the precocious little kid who like
Yeah.
lightens their heart. I just wish that I don't know. I need. I'm not saying I have a better idea. I understand why, but
Yeah.
I was just he didn't do anything for me.
I,
But
I, I
everything else about the show, I fucking
I
loved
like that
across the board.
they made it that he was born without hands, but
Yes,
and
I
then
do like
and
that.
then his dad like hating on him for not being able to be helpful around the kitchen, but then does his best to be the best sort of cook and does the
Mhm.
best at whatever he can. And I don't know, it was different than just a guy
Yeah,
following her
and
around.
I could see myself really liking his character in the future.
Hmm.
But in terms of like character arcs, he didn't really have much of one.
Okay.
Everyone else kind of did.
Yeah.
Uh, but Yeah, I was not expecting to watch a show and see a woman getting pleasure by an octopus while your main villain gets sodomized by a kabuki mask
Yeah.
with a giant nose on it as he
Uh-huh.
describes his evil plan. That was not in my bingo card of
No,
scenes I would see this
not
year.
at
And
all.
I was like, wow, this show is
Yeah.
graphic.
But it still had like a lot to say about, the strongest men want to be like treated like children and stuff, and be babied by these, mother prostitutes, and then
Mm,
walk out feeling like a tough man. I think it just had a lot to say about, like gender roles.
hmm
They said like with women, you're either a wife or you're a prostitute. Like that's your only option. You are pretty much property. It's
hmm
a really interesting time in Japan. Like no white people exist except for four. Um, and I really thought we were going to just knock out all four this season. I didn't
Yeah.
think it would take, it'd go past season one. And when we had only killed one guy that we didn't even see her kill,
Mm.
I was like, oh, are they all going to be in the same room at the same time? But it's nice that we're going to take it out of Japan. We're going to go to London
Yeah, I
and
thought
find
this
the
was a
rest.
one season
Yeah,
deal, but once it ended, I was like, oh, this is definitely setting up for season two. And I like the idea of, yeah, her going like a samurai in London is a cool
is
title.
yeah.
And to see her cut down like because this season was pretty much there was no like there were guns, but
Mm-hmm.
just at the very end. So to see her character go to England where sword play isn't
Isn't
that
a thing.
common.
Yeah.
Uh, her going up against more modern technology. I look forward to seeing like how that
Mm.
fish out of water story happens because she's kind of a fish out of water in her own
Yeah.
country, so it'll be interesting to see.
And we'll have all new characters because her sidekick or her apprentice stayed back. The princess and her boyfriend, they stayed back. So it's not like we're ever going to see them again.
I was shocked that the main bad guy made it out
Yeah.
alive and is kind of like now your Negan character
Yeah.
for Walking
But I
Dead.
love him. He was such a good bad guy. Just a
hmm
real huge piece of shit.
He looked like every villain from like a Disney movie kind of put
Yeah.
together.
Just
Uh,
big barrel chested
yeah,
guy. I'm thinking like
like
Tarzan
like the guy
and
from
Gaston.
Tarzan, Gaston, and the dude from Pocahontas all like
Yeah.
formed together.
Yep.
And
And then
yeah,
maybe like, to get the red hair Hercules,
sure.
we'll throw some
Well,
Hercules
Hercules
in
was the
there.
good guy.
Yeah, yeah, but they sodomized him, and that's how they got it. All three of them, and then Hercules had a butt baby, and that was this guy.
Got it. But Blue Eyed Samurai, highly recommend.
Yeah. Let's do Wonka next.
Mhm.
I don't have a lot to say. It's kind of drifted away out of my brain. It's been
Yeah,
long enough.
we saw it right after I think our last podcast,
Yep.
so it's been
Two
2
weeks.
weeks since we.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
anyway, Wonka for me was a B
hmm
minus, maybe
I think I also gave it a
C
B
plus,
minus.
but probably B minus. Whimsical,
Yeah.
fun. The music wasn't bad. I just don't think the music was anything memorable other than the
Scrub
pure
Scrub.
imagine.
Oh.
Scrub Scrub is a fun song,
Yeah. You
but
can't say pure imagination. That's
I
already
know
a
no,
pre-established.
but I'm just saying like there's a reason. I'm glad that song was still in there
Sure.
because I think that's just a great song,
Yeah.
and it is so tied to Willy Wonka at this point, and like how
hmm
could you not have it? I really loved his shop. Sadly, we only were in there for
Yeah.
10 minutes,
Yeah.
but like walking into that store, I thought was like super fucking cool, and I was like, man,
hmm
I would love to go to any store that looked like this.
Yeah. It's like an
Uh,
FAO Schwartz, really.
yeah, the bad guys were fine. It seems a little silly that you had this sort of mob,
Chocolate mob. Yeah.
this chocolate mob that seemed to, I would imagine, seem to be running the town,
Yeah.
even though you would think there'd be an actual mob or crime syndicates or I don't know other food establishments, but like chocolate's the big thing in
Yeah.
town. But
And why were they hoarding it? Just to hoard wealth?
yeah, yeah.
And if
If we have all the chocolate between the three of us, no new chocolate people can like
sure, but they
fuck
were
with
like
our money.
watering it down, and I wish we got to see people being kind of disappointed with the chocolate,
hmm
like this is all we can get, or you see them, I love this chocolate, this is the best because they don't know any better, and then utterly like shitting their pants when they try Wonka stuff, and
hmm
then seeing the town turn on them. Uh, but nothing. We didn't get any of that. I hate the villains,
Hmm.
just because they do a good job of making you hate them.
Yeah,
But the Mrs. Scrubbit and Bleacher, I
yeah.
think are their names. They're the best. They're
Oh,
the
for
best
sure.
characters in the entire movie. I don't care about Wonka. I don't care about his little friend. I don't care about the as what's his Hugh Grant calls it, the Oompa Lumpa. They're Oompa Loompas. But he calls
Did
it
he call
like
them
he's like,
Oompa
I'm an Oompa Lumpa. Like, no, you don't even know.
Oh, see, I
And
didn't hear that.
terrible casting on that. He doesn't give a shit. That they should have pulled completely out of the story. It didn't add anything. We didn't need it. But Mrs. Scrubbit and Bleacher are so incredibly funny. They're just really good
Oscar
comedic.
winner Olivia Colman,
Yeah,
everybody.
but and it's funny because like we know her as this like refined actress, but she's like a comedian.
Hmm.
She got
She
her
was in Hot
start in
Fuzz, you know.
she got her start in comedy back in the day, and she just kind of has transitioned. So the rest of the world sees her as a funny actress who can do serious stuff, and we just see her as like a period piece
Hmm.
character actor. But the dude, Bleacher, I don't know anything that he was in. I guess he was in like Human Giant or something. Not Human Giant. What's that fucking that British? It's not Human Giant.
Who else was in it?
I don't know. I've never seen
Oh,
it. God, what the fuck is it called? I mean, pause.
Sherlock, The Office, Extras, the
No,
IT
it was
Crowd,
a comedy show.
Spaced, um, Broadchurch,
You're not
Luther. I'm just trying
you're
to
not
think of
doing any
BBC shows.
comedies.
Yeah, I know.
Give me.
British comedy doesn't do too well over here.
Yeah, his name is Tom Davis. I mean, he was in like Free Fire and Paddington 2. But the thing I think he's known for is
His deep, terrifying fucking
Jesus
voice.
Christ, best voice, like him and Matt Berry. I am so envious of those fuckers. Oh, the Mighty Boosh, right? I think that's what it's called, right?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I just got it all fucking mixed up. I don't know, but I don't really know much from anything. But that voice, like I told you, vibrated my bones. It was incredible.
I feel like Timothy Chalamet, I heard got a lot of flag. It was like he's not a good
He's
Wonka.
not a good
And
Wonka.
he didn't do anything for me that made me go like he's bad in this. Maybe it's just because I'm used to seeing him do dramatic roles where
Bones and
like
all, you
yeah,
know.
Bones and All, Dune.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see Call Me by Your Name, but
Yeah.
I can't imagine this is anything like that. uh, so seeing him do this sort of weirdo character was interesting. But I didn't hate him in this.
I just think they probably could have found either a nobody
Mhm.
who could have really killed it, or someone with a little more on stage.
Yeah.
Like I said Eddie Redmayne. I
Mhm.
think he may be a little too old for
Yeah, if you're
this.
going young Wonka, because Eddie Redmayne's probably pushing 40,
Yeah,
um, definitely mid 30s. Anyway, I thought this movie was cute, and I wasn't bored. It was tight. It's just
it's perfectly
it was
fine.
perfectly fine.
Yeah,
A good family film. They don't really make a lot of these anymore.
that
Where
aren't like specifically animated
yeah,
and like kids films.
so I think it's worth a watch. I would say like you don't necessarily need to pay money to see it.
No.
Uh, I just think that if you're gonna do something with Wonka, this is not the origin story that I would have done.
Yeah.
That I needed to see.
If we would have had a dedicated episode of this, I'd let you do
Yeah,
your pitch, but
I already pitched my origin Wonka story, which I think is much better.
yeah,
But the other thing we talked about off air is one thing I don't like, and this is just across the board in movies. Sometimes you can make it work. If you ask me an example, I don't have one, but I'm sure there is. But where the rules they don't exist.
yeah,
Like I'm okay with Wonka. He traveled the world and like ran into this island that's off the map, and that's where he discovers the Oompa Loompas and whatever. And uh, but he just says, "Oh, I'm a magician, an inventor, and a chocolatier." But he's not a magician. He's a fucking wizard
Yeah.
because he just has magical abilities,
He
and
has
no
like
one
a
seems
thundercloud in a jar.
and no one seems phased by it.
Nah.
They're just like, wow, what a cool thing to be able to pull an infinite tea set out of your top hat.
Yeah.
It's not a
Chocolate makes you float until you
it's
fart
not a
out the
magic
bug.
trick.
Yeah.
It's just pure magic.
Magic.
Yeah, and his little like mini factory that he folds out. Like I
Hmm.
thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
But he's just like, yeah, I pulled this flavor from the cherry blossoms of Japan, or
Hmm.
cherries from cherry blossoms of Japan. I pulled the vanilla from Manila, and
Hmm.
like he's got all these fun little sayings. But it's like, so you somehow you've captured a thunderstorm in a jar, and you've condensed it to be put into chocolate to give it just a little zap. And like I know that kind of fits in with the wildness of Wonka's imagination because
Hmm.
if you watch the original one, he's putting in a shoe into the recipe
Yeah.
to give it a little kick. He's
Yeah.
putting in a coat because the recipe is just a little too cold. You need to
Yeah.
warm it up.
Yeah.
So these things that would just are a OSHA hazard that should not be allowed. But it's this absurd thing, and you just kind of go, well, it's Wonka, man. He's able to like
Yeah.
figure these things out. It's like, but it doesn't make any fucking sense. It's
Yeah.
like when the entire like no one else in the it just seems like no one else in the world is magic except for him. But like, do,
Nobody's impressed by
but
magic.
no one's also really impressed by magic. They're
Yeah.
just like, oh, that's pretty cool. I ate a thing and it made me
Yeah.
float. But no one's just like, dude, we need to give this to the fucking military. Like,
Yeah.
how is this guy?
This guy
He
can.
developed flight technology by eating chocolate.
Yeah.
No one's really that surprised.
Uh huh.
What the fuck are you talking about? This should be all over the
There
world
was like
news.
hair growth stuff. A guy eats it and his hair grows back, and like a
And
hairless cat eats it and
yeah,
is like a Persian all of a sudden. This is like that would put the wig companies out of business, you know? Like
or like
there's
or in that scene, all these people are growing hair, this wild color hair, and they turn into like troll dolls, and
Mhm.
they were just like, "I want my money back." It's
Yeah.
like, what are you talking about? Like, that's not your biggest concern right
Yeah,
now.
exactly.
There's just, and I know it's just, well, it's a fun
It's
kids
a
movie,
fun
which
little
is
thing.
fine.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, well, I just wish someone would be impressed that this guy's a
Yeah.
living wizard, and no one seems to care.
Yeah. My final thought is the biggest egregious thing is none of it looked tasty. All the chocolate looked poopy, and especially being in a sewer and stuff like that. All of Wonka's chocolates looked like little brooches and little jewel boxes that you shouldn't be eating. His room, although cool looking, his shop was interesting. Nothing looked tasty. Did not compare to anything that was in the original Chocolate Factory.
All right.
I don't know. It didn't make me want chocolate, and they didn't re-release Wonka bars for this. Isn't that crazy?
Oh, really?
The only Wonka candy I've seen was at our Wawa, and it was gummy Wonka hats.
Hmm.
Okay, just gummy stuff, and it's like, oh, two crazy mixed up flavors. That's not the spirit of Wonka.
Yeah.
It needs to be crazy stuff. Like put those goddamn fly larvae in there. I need to fly.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I feel like I haven't really seen much in terms of tie-ins, and I don't really go to the concession stand to get anything anymore. But there should have been some sort of promo where, like, oh, all Regals or all AMC's or whatever, we're doing a golden ticket thing
Yeah.
where, like, we send theaters, you buy a ticket to Wonka, you get a chocolate bar. If you find the golden ticket,
Yeah.
you get a year supply of something, or like you
Sure.
get a free unlimited Regal pass or
Hmm.
something, like just something real fun and cool like that to like promote the movie. But it was just like, hopefully these tweens who want to fuck Chalamet will show up. Like that's all they cared about. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. Definitely not my. I said it was going to be one of the worst things of the year. Definitely, that's not the case. I wouldn't say it's a surprise either because I didn't really enjoy any of the music. It's just a perfectly
Yeah, it's
fine.
just perfectly fine across the board
I,
for
and
the most part.
and I feel like as an outsider, like Paul King directed this and he did Paddington, and everybody loves fucking Paddington, and I didn't love Paddington. It's a perfectly fine kids movie, but why are adults giving a shit about Paddington?
I liked Paddington. I didn't see why it blew everyone away. I heard Paddington 2 is incredible. I really want to see Paddington 2.
I can't see how it could be
But
so good and have like 100% on
it's
Rotten
like the
Tomatoes.
highest reviewed movie of all
Yeah,
time.
I don't get it.
But we'll see. Because at some point, I imagine I will watch Paddington 2.
Let's get to our I don't know our main topic. I guess the new release of the week.
Okay, we did talk. All right. Yeah, but so before we talk about that, I just
Oh,
one little thing.
okay.
So, because we are not just a movie and TV podcast, we read stuff and we play stuff. I
Sure.
read a thing.
Oh, okay.
So I mentioned, I think a couple weeks back, that we have a free library in the neighborhood. It's just a real small thing. There's a bunch of comic books in there. So one of the comic books, it was just one singular issue, the very first issue of Do a Power Bomb. It's a wrestling
Okay.
comic
Yeah.
book.
I've heard this, and I hear it's amazing.
Basically, the premise is a young girl. Her mom is like the world's greatest wrestler, and she has a title match against this other guy, and it's the Daredevil story, or whatever. It's just their mom's great. There was an accident. The guy didn't. He slipped when he was holding her, and she came down her neck, and she died.
Oh.
So her mom's dead. Cut to years later. She's in the ring. She's doing a wrestling thing. But her dad doesn't want to do wrestling because he's like, I don't want you to end up like your mom. Her uncle, who was a pro wrestler or whatever, won't train her because he made a promise to the dad that he wouldn't do it. But all she wants to do is be like her mom and be the world's greatest wrestler. And no one in the wrestling community will train her because they, out of respect for her mom and her family, they won't touch her. So she's like, well, I'll just do it myself. And then it gets to the end of the comic book, and you see this like weird guy who's like shooting lightning from his hands or whatever, and he kind of looks like what you remember the like biker gangs from like the old Ninja Turtles, where it's just like all dudes with like spiky hair and like cut off leather jackets or whatever. It kind of looked like that, and he's just like, hey, I'm a necromancer, and we're going to go to this other realm, and you're going to compete in this competition, and maybe I'll be able to bring your mother back to life. And then that's where it ends, because it was just like a very simple like wrestling story, and then at the very end it's like, by the way, I'm a dark wizard. You're going to fight some weird shit. And I was like, this seems pretty fucking cool. So I probably won't read any of the other stuff, because I doubt I'll go out and buy it. But for one issue, it kept me interested, and I liked the artwork, although I thought some of it was a little busy. But I thought it was a cool concept, because I just thought it was going to be like a little wrestling thing, or the wrestlers would have superpowers or something. But it's just like, no, you're a normal wrestler, but you're going to face, I don't know, demons or something. You don't see any of your opponents. You just see this necromancer guy just like, I'm going to bring your mom back to life if you beat all these other wrestlers. This seems cool.
Okay.
I think it's a thing you would really like.
I tried to read a wrestling comic back in the day when I was getting into comics, and I really liked wrestling, and the WWF at the time was trying to make wrestling comics, and so it was The Undertaker, and it, like everything we see on TV, it's all just a show, it's all an illusion. But what's really happening in the ring is him fighting demons and putting them back to hell.
That's cool.
And it's just like a facade. And I remember going, yikes, this is terrible, because it was kind of terrible, but it very similar sounding to that. And I've heard that
wrestling
title
isn't known for its writing.
That's true. Okay, so segue.
Speaking of wrestling, our main topic today, The Iron Claw, starring Zac Efron. What do you think of this movie?
I was excited to watch this just because I knew some of the story of the Von Erichs. I knew more about the Hart family more than the Von Erichs. Because especially even after watching this, and you go, oh, they're in the Hall of Fame, they're one of the greatest wrestling dynasties, and like, but did they do much of anything? Yeah, they were
I've never heard of this family until I saw this movie. Growing up, I was a fan of wrestling like every kid, I think kind of is at one point or another.
But it was like Rock, Stone Cold.
Yeah, I grew up in the Rock, Stone Cold
the Attitude era.
Yeah, which many say is the best era. So that was my intro to wrestling, and then by the time I got to high school, I pretty much kind of fell off of it. Because I just thought like, oh, this is kind of lame.
Yeah.
But as I got older, I have a new respect for it now. And I think this movie does a good job of showing why you should respect it, even if it is kind of silly.
Yeah.
But you're more of a wrestling fan than I am, so you know probably more lore and more wrestlers. And...
Sure, yeah. Like, I didn't really see any of these guys wrestle except for the Texas Tornado is the name he gives himself. I saw a lot of him, but I didn't see much of the rest of the family. That was a little too early for me. and I was too young to know of any of the deaths in the family. And did you know they even left out a brother in this?
I didn't until once the movie was over. I was like, I gotta look up how
Yeah.
sort of accurate this was,
Mm-hmm.
and finding out that there was another brother that
There's
they left out
another
who also died. I was like,
yes.
holy shit.
Yeah, the one that we see who kills himself, he wasn't even the first one. I well, actually, two of them in this movie killed themselves. There was a third one that killed himself as
Hmm.
well. But this movie was pretty good, and my roommate asked me, like, "Did you cry? I hear it's really sad." I'm like, "No, I have a heart of ice. I don't cry
Yeah.
at movies." But I would say Zac Efron gives a really good performance.
Hmm.
He's really good. You know, his really super emotional scene at the very end. I can see why it would make people cry, but you know, I'm dead inside, so I
Yeah.
didn't. But that dude is scary. He is huge. I've never seen Zac Efron be so big. Just the first scene we see of him, he's getting out of bed, and you could see his muscles like rippling under his skin. It looks painful to be that size.
Yeah. I, I was telling my wife about the movie the day after, and was just like, everyone is pretty fit in this movie, but it's just so distracting how fit Zac Efron is
Yeah,
because, like, the only one who's even close to him is Jeremy Allen White,
yeah,
but he still looks like a human. Zac
yeah.
Efron doesn't look human.
No,
He looks like a monster
he looks like
person.
He-Man,
Yeah,
especially with that
especially with
haircut.
I was
I
like,
was like, this guy needs to play
cast him.
He-Man.
Yeah,
Do it.
I'm fine with it. But give Zac Efron the live action He Man movie. Uh, it was like he was absurdly big, and if you look at wrestlers, a lot of them are absurdly big. So
Mm-hmm.
his body type wasn't a surprise. Like I think if this was any other actor who looked like this and who
Mm-hmm.
like prepared for this role, they'd be like, "Well, give him the fucking up." Like if Joaquin Phoenix came out and looked like Zac
Yeah,
Efron does in this movie, you'd be like, "What? One of the greatest American actors who've ever lived." But
yeah.
because Zac Efron does it, no one really gets
He's
because
like,
he's
well,
always
you've
been kind
always
of
been a
fit.
buff
Yeah,
dude. You can take a couple of human growth hormones and you
yeah,
inflate.
and whatever he did to get into this shape, more power to you, man. I don't
I
really
don't
get
know
it.
if I think it fucked his face up, and he looks weird.
Well, his face is fucked up because of an accident, not because of he took steroids or
But
whatever.
it still made his like neck big and his head hit big. Like human growth hormones will make you get have a big head, not just ego, but actually physically. And
Well,
and yeah,
we won't
accident
speculate on that. Uh,
freak.
that being said, I thought he was good. I thought he was also. I wouldn't say he was the weakest because you get enough of the brothers to like them
Hmm.
and kind of see who they are, but you don't really get enough of them as characters.
Hmm.
Like this, it really is just like the Zac Efron
Yeah,
and the dad show,
yeah,
because the mom is like in the background,
yeah.
not really a character,
Ugh,
but she
hated
does
her.
have some nice moment. Like everyone
Sure.
gets a moment to shine this movie, um, but it pretty much is the Zac Efron show, and I think like that's what's kind of a bummer because he has scenes where he's good, but he also because a big part of this movie is you don't cry, you don't show emotion, and
Hmm.
he's trying to be the glue that holds the family together after like all these tragedies. He doesn't emote, so it
Hmm.
doesn't seem like he's really putting on that good of a performance.
Mm.
So when he does at the very end, you're just like, well, it it makes sense and it feels worth it. So I think he does exactly what he's supposed to throughout the whole movie, and he does a very great job. That being said, it's not like one of those performances where it's just like, whoa, Zac Efron's gonna get it.
Yeah, he's not going to win anything
Yeah.
for it,
I don't
but
even think he's going to be nominated. I think
probably
there'll be
not.
people who are like,
Oh,
"Oh,
he
you
got
snubbed him,"
yeah.
but there's no like real big scene. There isn't the "I drink your
Yeah,
milkshake" scene
or
or anything
Mickey
like that.
Rourke in The Wrestler and
Yeah.
how much he goes through.
Uh, but I fucking really dug this movie.
Yeah, I thought it was
It's a
good.
movie I'll probably never watch again
Yeah.
because it is not a fun time. It
Mm-mm.
is a bummer.
Yeah.
Pretty much from beginning to end, but not like a slog. I was always entertained. The wrestling sequences I thought were done fun and
Mm-hmm.
accurately. I thought, there's some good musical cues, like the Rush montage sequence
Mm-hmm.
was great. All the brother stuff I really liked. I
Yeah.
didn't have brothers growing up,
Neither did I.
but I bought all their relationships and the small moments they all had together, and just like you never see them with friends. It's always with each other because they were just each other's best friends,
Yeah.
and like
You don't need friends when you have 18 brothers.
so I always bought their family dynamic and they were like even when their dad was totally being a shithead, like but they all still loved him.
Yeah.
Like there was moments where their dad seemed to be a good dad.
Yeah,
So
both
like,
parents were like, "Oh, you guys are good, but you're also terrible at the same time." Like the mom saying, like just going to his mom and say, "Hey, mom, I have something I want to talk to you about." Well, discuss it with your dad or discuss it with your brothers. Well, it's about them. I want you to step in. Not my problem. Like, bitch, this is your son being like harassed and abused by your husband. Do something.
mhm. Yeah. So very frustrating to watch. So. Uh, is there anything specifically you want to talk about in this movie? Or should we just get straight to like
Uh,
the
I,
deaths and
I
stuff?
want to know, why did he wrestle barefoot? They didn't explain that. He was barefoot all the
I did
time,
notice
but
that,
his
but I didn't.
brothers always wore shoes. And if it could have just been a line like, "I just like the grip."
Huh?
Okay, good.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a character, it's not like he was playing some crazy savage man who was barefoot. It just seemed like a preference. And I'd like to know that. If it's a biopic of these people, those are the little things I want to know
Yeah.
about.
As much wrestling was in this movie, it never really went too much into wrestling.
Yeah,
Um, but one scene I really did like was the first date with him and Lily James.
yeah.
Uh, and I'll just say, like, Lily James isn't necessarily given much in this movie, but every
Yeah.
scene she's in, I think she's great.
She's so good in
I
everything.
love Lily James.
Yeah.
She's so talented, and she
She
has so
did feel
much.
a little bit like her character in Baby Driver. Like they just
Yeah,
kind of plucked her and dropped her
sure,
back in.
and just send her back 30 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Maybe it's that character's mom. Because
that'd
Baby Driver is a true story.
that'd be fun. Uh, but she just has no matter what movie she's in, she has a chemistry with whoever her
Yeah.
scene partner is. She's great. Anyway, so with whatever little bit she's given, she does a good job.
Hmm.
But I really loved her first scene. I'm like, well, isn't wrestling fake? Which is the conversation every
Yeah.
wrestler's had and
Yeah.
has gone through. But I've never heard someone present it the way that he does, where,
Hmm.
well, it's just like any other job. You do well, you get promoted. And that's all
Hmm.
a title shot is. So, I go out there and I entertain and I, have charisma and do all this other stuff.
Hmm.
If I perform well, then that moves me up the ranks and I get to, get the job I've always wanted. And
Yeah.
so it's like, oh, that
That
makes
make
sense to me.
yeah.
I never thought of it that way.
As
But
a kid, my dad, he hated wrestling, so he always took opportunities to let me know it was fake, and I would not believe it as a kid.
mhm.
Like, no, these are real people. This man who looks like a white guy dressed as an Indian, he's a real Indian, and he's fighting a guy called the British Bulldog, and it just makes sense. And this
Mhm.
is real. These are real feuds. And of course, as I got older, I realized it was, and it kind of made me not like wrestling very
Yeah.
much. But then when I got back into it after high school, I just had this realization of, well, every movie's fake, every
Yeah.
TV show's fake. None of it's real. They're all acting.
It's
So
it's a,
why is
it's a soap opera for men.
Exactly. It's and like, well, it's sports entertainment. If you try to look at this and compare it to football, like, yeah, obviously that's a game.
Yeah.
This is entertainment. So people just need to get over it.
Yeah, you have your kid phase where it's so cool because these are men you want to grow up to be because they're big and strong and badass, and then you find out Santa Claus isn't real, and you're like,
Yeah.
well, this is lame for me to like,
Yeah.
and then you get out of high school or whatever and realize like, you know what, you're like, oh, wrestling match is on, fuck it, there's nothing else on. You watch, and you're like, you know what, this is kind of fun. You get kind of back into it, or maybe
Mhm.
you grow up and your kids get into it, so now it's you're watching it with your children because it is just fun entertainment.
Yeah.
Um, so anyway, I really really like this movie. Is there anything else I want to mention?
Yeah, saddest death. So pretty much everybody dies in this. All the brothers die except for Zac Efron. He was the only one that survived. And because there was the Von Erich curse, and even even after the fact, people in the family, the extended family, because he had like four sons and they all had kids, and so he has a very big extended family. There was even like tragedy that did still trickle down, so the
Hmm.
curse is still around.
Uh, so saddest death probably
Can you name everyone?
I can actually
Mike.
Mike, David. Well, okay, I'll Kevin was Zac Efron.
Hmm.
Carrie was Jeremy Allen White. David was the tall
The
one,
tall
and then
one.
Mike was the youngest one,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
then
And then there's
Jack was the
the
oldest brother
oldest.
who was a child when
They
he
didn't
died.
say how he died, but did you see
I
in
looked it
the
all up after.
trivia?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Like
well,
just
no,
that.
I think they did mention. I think they mentioned in the movie how he died. I
Oh,
think
did
Zac
it?
Efron was telling Lily
I
James,
thought he just said
it's like,
like
oh,
he died when
I'm
he
the
was 5, and I didn't quite remember him
man. I thought they mentioned it. Doesn't matter
because I
anyway.
didn't realize it until I read the
Yeah.
trivia that he stepped in an electrified puddle in the front of his house.
Well, yeah, he stepped on something electric, passed out in the snow. The snow melted, and he drowned in that.
Oh Jesus
Yeah.
Christ, that's where. See, I just figured it was like a wire in a puddle.
No, no,
Oh
no.
my God, it's
Yeah.
even worse.
Yeah. So it wasn't the electricity that killed him. It was drowning in face first
Jesus,
into a very small puddle.
wow.
So those like, that 1 inch of water, they say like,
Yeah,
be careful around that. Like it's 1 inch of water. It's gonna, like
like yeah, yeah,
it can fucking kill you.
yeah.
Anyway,
Use your upper body strength, kid. Do a little push up, and look, you're out of the water.
but so let's just go through the deaths
Okay,
first. The first death technically was his oldest brother, but you don't see
you don't
that.
see it.
The next death was David, who he was on top. He surpassed Zac Efron. He was going for his title, but he just had to do a little bit of a world tour, stop off in Japan. On Zac Efron's wedding day, you see him puking up blood, and you're just like, oh, I'm just not feeling well.
Yeah.
Turns out he had a ruptured
Intestine.
intestine
Yeah.
and died in his hotel room.
Damn.
And really upset the family. But one accident, or there's an accident, two accidents in the family. This shit happens. It's a real bummer.
Yep.
Luckily, I still have 3 sons. Then the other brother gets.
Carrie gets into a motorcycle accident.
Well, wins the title, becomes world champion.
Yeah.
He's the favorite of the family. Gets in a motorcycle accident, loses a foot,
Ugh.
but is still alive.
Yep.
Uh, Then so it's like, all right, well, we got to get Mikey in the ring. They get Mikey in the ring, and
Poor Mikey.
Mikey hurts his shoulder. Turns out, hurting his shoulder somehow released toxins in his body and put him in a coma.
Yep.
It's like Jesus fucking Christ.
But he comes out of
But
it.
he comes out of it. It's like that. It was just like that's what I also really liked about this movie. There were so many. Oh, this is where they die because they die.
Yeah.
But no, they actually survive.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And he's not quite there.
but yeah, he comes back from the coma. He talks a little bit slower. He can't move his body as fast. But they're like, he's a fighter. He's gonna make it back into the ring. He can't. Mikey was the artistic one in the family. He didn't want to wrestle. He just wanted to make music, and he was actually pretty good, but he can't play the guitar. So he pops a bunch of pills and walks out to the field, and ODs. So he kills himself, and so now there's only two brothers left, and they're both still like the brother Carrie missing a foot. He puts on a special shoes and so he can wrestle, and he ends up doing. I thought he wasn't ever going to wrestle again, but he works his way back, and he's traveling the world and wrestling and stuff. But turns out he's in so much pain because doing it like this is hurting him so much. He's taking painkillers, and he gets addicted to them, and he can't do it anymore. So he's just like, fuck it, shoots himself in the chest in the family home, or in the family yard. Where Zac Efron finds him. So now all of your brothers are dead. And that doesn't include the other brother that they cut out of this movie, who shot himself in the head because he wasn't as good as his brothers, I guess, is the limited thing I read, and, wasn't getting work or not as famous. He was the lesser of the brothers. And so he got severely depressed and shot himself in the head. So, the father character has now lost, in real life, 5 sons. 3 to suicide and 2 to accidents. One is you could say a self-inflicted accident because you just wrestle and you just throwing punches and you hurt yourself or whatever. But yeah, so and at no point in this movie does it ever seem like the dad takes responsibility or takes it. It's just, well, they were just too weak, or
God called him back.
God called him back, or this hurt us, but we can still bring the title home. It was always about the fucking title. Like it was this magical holy grail that was going to solve all of his problems. It would break the curse if they got this title or something. But I also, we're talking about performances. I want to say,
well, you didn't say which death was the
which death was the saddest. Carrie.
Yeah.
Like Mikey's the obvious choice.
Yeah.
Just because he's the shouldn't have been in the ring in the first place.
He shouldn't have been there.
And just wanted to play music. And the thing I liked about that is you find out the dad was a musician too, but he chose sports because he's like, well, there's no future in music.
Yeah.
And like the mom was just like, oh yeah, he played the clarinet, which is like not a super masculine instrument.
Not at all.
But like him playing music for me made me fall in love with him. He was a well-rounded man, and like that's a great idea to be. It's like as he was, it's like, well, I want to make my sons well-rounded. It's like if you want to force them into wrestling, sure, but teach them music, teach them art and culture and reading and
He
stuff like
even
that.
said, I didn't want wrestling for you guys. I hoped you guys would go down another path, but
Yeah.
this seems to be in our family. Okay, I think you're full of shit.
Yeah.
I think you actually just want all of them to do wrestling,
Right.
and you're just trying to save
I didn't get the
face.
title, so I'm going to use all of you in the hopes that one of you will do it. I'm just increasing my chances.
It's a shame. I really wanted him to be like, no, Dad, I don't want to do a drop kick.
But I liked that when the brother got a gig and the parents said no, the brother's just like, fuck that,
yeah,
we'll
yeah.
go.
I love that they all loved each other,
Yeah.
and the only real like issue was when Zac Efron and Carrie were like, no, I'll be champion. No, all. It's just like a one moment of, hey, fuck you.
Well, it's like our whole family is fighting for this one thing. Only one of us can get it.
Yeah.
And since I messed up my shot, David didn't get. Now I have a chance at a second shot, but now I have to compete with my other brother. Like, this fucking sucks.
How different would have things been if it would have landed on Tails or whatever it was?
So I get why Mikey would be the obvious choice, just especially because I think it's these '80s haircuts. Like they just gave him the doofus. Like he looked like Simple Jack to me from
they were all very
no offense to
looking.
that actor, but I think Carrie's death was the saddest. Carrie's was my least favorite of the brothers, just because. As great of an actor as Jeremy Allen White is, he had it felt like 12 lines.
Yeah,
this whole movie.
He doesn't say a lot.
I think if this movie was made a year later, like after all this heat got on to Jeremy Allen White, they would have switched Zac Efron to Jeremy Allen White.
You think?
Yeah, I think that could have been the difference in this movie, but
or just not cast Zac Efron. Just because I can't see Zac Efron playing a younger brother to Jeremy Allen White.
Oh no, that wouldn't bother me. Anyway. But I think Carrie's death was the saddest for me, just because I really, really liked the heaven scene.
Mm-hmm.
I will say it almost feels out of place in a movie that's like
based on a real story.
When you get a biopic, you don't really get dream sequences.
Sure.
But I thought it was done in a really sweet and honest way of just I'm gonna go be with my brothers, and then you see him cross and they're not in the wrestling ring.
Yeah.
You see the brother with the guitar. They get where because it's not about their heaven is with each other.
Yeah.
And then they even run into their little brother, and it's not a grown version of himself. It's how
all that is good.
I thought it was an effective scene. It was the last brother, and it was where Zac Efron finally got to release his rage and everything. It just felt like when every other brother died, it was this is sad. But we can't.
You got to keep.
We can't deal with it. We got to just keep moving forward.
But in a normal movie, should I say normal? Typically, this scene would play out silently. You wouldn't hear him talk "Hey, man, you're even a guitar player in the afterlife. All right, I love this afterlife cowboy hat you're wearing." They're acknowledging that they're in the afterlife. It would play with no audio. They would hug. They would separate. You'd see the younger one. You would get it all with context clues, and they'd have a beautiful score. And you keep cutting back to Zac Efron crying, thinking about this. The fact that there was dialogue, I didn't like that.
No, it didn't bother me. But I mean, just him going over, because that's the other thing. You never see any of them really die.
No.
You know what they do to die.
Yeah.
But the idea of your brother asking for help, because the other ones they didn't have. Jack was an accident. David was an accident. Mikey, he didn't ask for help. He was just I know I can't live like this. But it's just you and your last brother, and your brother's just hey man, I'm not gonna make it through this. And it's just or not asking for help, but he is reaching out.
Yeah.
And you just can't help him, and then being just a minute too late.
Yeah. You were there. If you just would have looked a little more to one side, you may have caught him.
And I don't know if that's accurate to real. I didn't look that up. I imagine it's not true.
Yeah.
But if you were there and you just missed it, and then you pick him up, and I love the shot of him picking him up, and then it cut to the ground. And you just see the blood pulling in the leaves under the tree. I was oh, that's so fucking brutal. And just carrying him inside and not shedding a fucking tear, and just imagining your brothers all being together and you can't be there. And I think in the very next scene you have him in the ring, like reaching out to try, like, because he's in a tag team match or whatever. Or
Hmm.
maybe it was before Carrie died. Maybe it was when there's still two of them. But like he had no brothers left. It's like
Yeah.
I love, and he said earlier in the film, I love nothing more than being in the ring with my brothers.
Hmm.
And it's like he can't do that anymore,
Yeah.
and it's so fucking sad.
And then you have this like wrestler who's being a hot shot, and I think it's supposed to be Lex Luger because he was just doing this like flexing arm pump thing
Hmm.
that he was known for, and like, oh, here's the future. Here's someone who's younger than me. He's actually going to get title shots. He's not even tagging me in. He's being a showboat, and
Hmm.
now I got nothing.
Yeah,
I don't have wrestling. I don't have my brothers. I'm done.
yeah,
So I'm glad he sold.
yeah.
I'm glad it wasn't like he got run out and was forced to sell at like 50% what its
Hmm.
value was. I'm glad he was able to go, fuck this, sell. I'm buying my house in Hawaii or wherever it
Yeah.
was.
And we also see a little bit of his relationship with Lily James kind of deteriorating, which
Hmm.
like all these deaths in your family of like your favorite people, like of course it's going to affect
Yeah,
you. And but she's just like, I'm trying to be patient, but I can't raise
this
this
isn't
kid.
gonna work.
I can't raise this kid on my own. Like
Yeah.
you need to come home. And I'm glad, he does. And you see it's years later, and his kid's a little bit older. He's built this family.
Hmm. I'm glad
Because
he.
like all these brothers, you had three brothers who killed themselves. Not in the context of this movie, but in
Yeah.
real life, and then just you've lost everything. And it's like I don't blame anyone if they wanted to kill themselves after
Yeah.
all this.
Yeah.
But he seems to still stay positive
Hmm.
and all that. And I commend this man for his existence.
Yeah.
Um,
Let's hope. Hopefully, he is a good person and he's not a piece of shit. Because in a lot of movies like this, you would see him really screaming at his wife. The baby's crying. There's a pot of boiling water on the stove, and the smoke
mhm,
alarm's going off, and he hits her, and then apologizes. Oh, it's just too much. I like that he was just in bed, not even able to like formulate words for
mhm,
her, and she kind of snaps him out, and he jumps to it and goes like, "Oh yeah, I have to do this."
mhm.
So I'm glad he was a good man.
It's a little moment, but I also really like the scene um, where uh, it's after the funeral of I believe Mikey. And Lily James tries to pass the baby off to him, and he's like,
Mm-mm.
"No."
I don't
She's
want
like,
to.
"What do you mean?" And she's like, "I don't want to give it to him." Like he was
Yeah,
afraid this curse was like contagious,
yeah. He's
and
already got your genes, buddy. If he's got it, he's got it.
and I was just like, "That's so fucking sad to like
Yeah.
not even want to hold your child
Hmm.
because you're afraid that." This thing you never believed in the first place is just like, but it is like killing off
Coming,
your
yeah, and
family.
it's coming
Like
true.
you could have shot this as a horror movie and it would have worked just
Yeah,
as well.
yeah. It's
Uh,
the final destination, sort of looming death, just
yeah.
constantly following him.
Um, but so I think that kind of pretty much covers it.
Yeah.
I want to give a shout out to I believe the actor's name is Holt McNary, the dad. I
Mm,
thought he was really
yeah.
great in this movie. He's one of those character actors you've seen in a bunch of stuff,
Yeah.
but
Master. Oh, not
Mindhunter
Mine
is probably what
Hunters.
he's most known for.
He
But
was
what a great
the
actor!
burglar at the beginning of Justice League when
Oh
Batman fights him
yeah,
at the top, and he's in the stereotypical like burglar
I
outfit.
forgot about that.
Yeah.
Well, other than that role, what a great actor. I wouldn't be surprised if he got like a supporting nom and
Sure, I can see
Zac
that.
Efron got shafted.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought he was pretty great in this movie. I think
Yeah.
he was a good. And in my research, found out his wrestling character was a fucking Nazi. Did you know
Really?
that? Yeah,
Oh.
he was.
Oh, I wonder why they didn't give me a championship.
So the reason they're the Von Erichs and not the Atkinses is because when the dad became a wrestler, his character was a Nazi, so he changed his name to Von Erich
Okay.
so that fit his character more.
Okay.
And then he had to keep that name because that's just what you're known for at that point.
Yeah.
It's like the Rock. My name's not the Rock, but
Yeah.
I keep going by the Rock.
Yeah.
So yeah, they cut that out to probably good effect, but
Probably. I mean, if there was even a scene into like his promoter saying, "Hey, we need you to play Nazi. It's Nazis are big right now. They're the hot thing. We need you to do it." It's like, dude, I don't want to be that. Like my family is from Europe and they had to flee, whatever. And him being reluctant and then cursing that he got pigeonholed into this role. He never got a title shot because he was always seen as a bad guy. They could have played up on
yeah,
that.
that's a different movie. Yeah,
That's a longer
I was
movie.
listening to one podcast kind of talk about this, and like you could have easily made this like a 6 episode
Sure.
series,
Hmm.
and at the end of every episode, one of the brothers dies or whatever. And it's like, yeah, that could work. And there's a lot more stuff you could delve into and show more of a
Yeah,
side of wrestling, and you
for
could
sure.
get the father's backstory. Like you could
Hmm.
have done more with this story, but in terms of a just a 2 hour movie, I thought this in terms of a 2 hour movie, I thought this was really well done and well
Yeah,
put together,
good,
and just
well
gave you enough of
paced.
the brothers where it's like, yeah, they're not really too much of characters, but you like them enough that when they
Yeah,
die, it's sad.
yeah,
Um, so then I think all that's really left is the final scene, which didn't make me cry, but I was feeling some
yeah.
stuff. I thought it really worked for me. Because after all this stuff, you see Zac Efron just like bawling his eyes out, watching his two young sons throw the pigskin around like him and his brothers did.
Hmm.
And the two kids,
We'll be your brother's
yeah, the
dad.
two kids notice, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, kids. Like, you shouldn't see me like this. Men shouldn't cry." And then they're just like, "Nah, man, men, you can cry. We cry all
We
the
cry
time."
all the time.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, you do.
Yeah, it's just like, well, why are you sad? Well, I'm sad because I used to be a brother. I'm not a brother anymore. It's like, well, we'll be your brother's dad. And then it's just like, in my like new dad brain, I was like, this is
Yeah.
the kind of shit I can't wait to see. Like, you can be, I want my son to be my brother. That doesn't make any fucking sense. But it was real nice. Like
Yeah.
in a movie that's so tragic, the way it ended, like, kind of gave me hope again.
Hmm.
And I just thought that was a very effective scene. It probably
Yeah.
would have, it might have made my best. Oh, well, maybe not this scene. There was a lot of good scenes in this
Yeah.
movie,
Yeah.
but I think it went out on a high. I thought this movie was great. It in my revised top 10. It's in it, and it's great to see Zac Efron do something more than his like comedy roles. Even though I
Yeah.
liked him in his comedy roles, it shows he can act and lead a movie.
Yeah.
And I look forward to seeing A24 kind of do more of these. Uh, Not weird genre movies, but like
It's still a genre movie. It's a sports biopic. So, but they do a lot of horror, mystery,
yeah,
weird lamb people.
the like indie movie vibe feel of
Yeah.
A24. Like it seems like they're kind of branching into the more mainstream aspect, but still
Hmm.
kind of keeping to their tone,
Yeah.
which I'm all for. I'm looking forward to this new wave of
Yeah,
A24
because
what they do.
they were talking about how they want to do more like blockbustery sort of things. They want
Yeah,
to do the bigger pictures, and I think everybody thought, oh, they're going to do a fucking Spider-Man or something. No, this is I think what we're going to get
yeah.
more of. If you want to know more, there's a show called Dark Side of the Ring.
Hmm.
Lots of great episodes of just wrestling is such a fucked up industry, and everybody who has worked through it ends up being fucked up. There's very few normal, well-adjusted wrestlers. It's like your John Cena and The Rock
Hmm.
to a point, but even him, he's an egomaniac. But John Cena seems like the most humble one. But yeah, Dark Side of the Ring. They do an episode on the Von Erichs. It's very good. I also recommend the episode on Chris Benoit. Really breaks down
Hmm.
why he killed himself and his family. They're hard episodes to watch
Yeah.
because there are some bad things that happen to these people.
Uh,
What do you think of the finisher, the
uh,
actual Iron
I thought
Claw?
that was the dumbest move I've ever
It's
seen.
like Mankind's thing where he puts his like fingers in your mouth with the sock and is like,
Yeah,
"Oh, this is debilitating." Yeah,
like, but at least like that has a gross element to it, and I can
sure.
imagine like you pulling down on someone's jaw is
Yeah,
painful. But just like, I mean, I've had strong people put their hands on my head. It's like this is uncomfortable,
yeah.
but to I can imagine someone's hand having strength you wouldn't expect.
Mm-hmm.
But for it to be like the finisher, I thought was
Yeah,
it's the move you do that sort of like stuns your enemy before you do the power bomb or
yeah.
pile driver or whatever to finish them
Mm-hmm.
off. It's not the thing that wins you the match.
If it was a you're in a tag team and one person's doing that move while someone is doing something to their legs and you
Mm,
got like this dual end uh submission hold, I think it works, but it's just one of those very flashy wrestling things,
yeah.
like Hulk Hogan powering up. You can
Mhm.
punch him and he gets stronger and stronger until he beats you up. It's just one of those showmanship
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
You just Rikishi threw his big ass in your face and that was his finisher.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
honestly, all finishers I think are pretty dumb.
Nah, there's some great ones.
Uh,
There's some good fucking finishers.
well, in general,
The
just 'cause
pedigree, that would kill you.
the Triple H, that's the
Triple
Triple H.
H's, yeah. Your arms are behind your back and your head is between someone's knees. If they wanted to kill you, you're fucking dead.
I just mean I I've seen all these dudes hit their backs, land on their chest 1,000 times during the match, but it's
Yeah,
just when they do the special move where they also land on their face or back,
yeah,
that's the one that knocks them out. That
yeah,
doesn't really make much sense
yeah.
to me. It's like you can get drop kicked in the chest, hit the back, or like thrown off the top rope and land on your back. Oh, that hurts so bad. But then the Rock like throws your arm over his shoulder and then slams you to the ground.
Uh-huh.
That's the hardest
That's
you've
the
been
worst
hit.
one. Yep,
That's not how it is.
yep.
Or it's like, oh, the guy who's on the top of the turnbuckle dives off and like lands 10 feet above you and hits you with the elbow. Oh, but you get up and you're okay. But then the Rock, does the people's elbow, but that elbow is
Yeah,
like,
is the worst
yeah,
thing. They
it
flop everywhere.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it's practically sends you out the fucking
Yeah,
ring.
like if
Like
Stone Cold did
wrestling
a,
moves are dumb.
they are. If Stone Cold did a stunner on me, like kicks me in the stomach, grabs my head, and he goes and drops down, like I'm gonna be able to. Okay, you drop onto the ground, and then I'm just gonna stand there. You're not gonna make me springboard backwards and do
Hmm.
3 flips. It's ridiculous, but I do like it as being the name of the movie and just
Hmm.
this kind of like it could have been the Von Erich curse or something, but
Yeah.
having it be the finisher and it is kind of this hold that the whole family had felt on them from their father,
Hmm.
from the expectations of the industry.
Yeah, it was
It
the
worked really
dad's
well.
move that they all kind of
Yeah.
co-opted and everything. Yeah, it's a good double feature with that and Talk to Me. I didn't see Talk to Me, but I want to.
Iron Claw versus Talk to Me Hand.
Uh, that's the celebrity death match I want to watch.
Yeah. And then Master Hand from Smash Brothers
And
comes in.
and what's the hand from the Addams Family?
Oh, cousin it. I mean, the thing.
Oh, it's
I
just a
mean, it's
thing.
just thing.
Thing, yeah.
Yeah.
And then Thing gets in there. Um, that's a tag team match.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So anyway, I think I'll give this A minus.
Okay.
I really like this movie.
I gave this a solid B.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah. The only thing that holds it back is just that it's not a fun story to
Yeah.
hear about.
Yeah.
It's
It's
a
a
real
rough one.
bummer, but good movie, good cast, and really really enjoyed it.
Cool.
Glad I ended the year on that.
Yeah, yeah. My final movie of the year. I don't think I'm gonna go see any of the other bullshit that's out right now. So, and because Poor Things doesn't want to come anywhere close to us, at least in a Regal.
Hmm.
I think the only place that's playing it is like a really independent thing in the city. It's not even like a real movie
Yeah, I'm
theater.
not traveling that far to
Yeah,
see
I
that
ain't
movie.
doing
I'll
that
wait.
shit.
Just because I have a feeling like I won't.
You're not gonna like it all that much.
I'll appreciate its value, but I'll never watch it again.
Oh, okay, all right,
That's my guess.
okay,
I would love to be wrong because I
cool.
know it's on everyone's top 10,
Yeah.
but I think it's just gonna be one of those weird as fuck things where I'm just like, this
Hmm.
is a Beau is Afraid, but I didn't see Beau is Afraid.
Yeah. So next week, ooh, I don't know.
Well, we can talk Saltburn
We can if I get around,
if
if
you
I
get
see
around to
it.
it.
I think the new
We
release
can watch
is.
Anyone But You, the
Oh
Glenn Powell, Sydney
yeah.
Sweeney movie that's
Oh.
all the rage on TikTok
Well,
or
I've heard
whatever.
like everyone was giving that movie shit because like they are secretly dating behind the scenes and they both were with people at the time, so there's this like hubbub about that. Um and so everyone was kind of shitting on it like don't see it as they're a bunch of bad people. But then I've heard, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah,
It's not the worst
I
thing.
I went on the Reddit to see. I didn't want to like read any spoilers or anything, but it was just kind of like people talking about, it, and I was like, it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Clearly a movie that was designed for the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
It follows all the same sort of tropes, but it's fun. It's a good time, and yeah, got gets a couple laughs out of me. I think reviews have been pretty solid for it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know if I'm gonna be willing to give up a couple hours on my weekend
I'm just saying
to
it's an
watch it.
option. I wouldn't hate watching it.
Well,
Sorry,
not that I'm gonna force you to watch something you don't want to see, but Night Swim,
I'm not
first
watching
new
Night
release
Swim.
of
I'm not
2024.
doing it.
Okay, well we'll see.
If
Maybe
I hear Night Swim is the shit, sure. But from the trailer, that movie
it,
looks like
it's
shit.
a week 1 January release. It ain't gonna be
Yeah.
good.
No, I'm not watching
Oh yeah,
Night
we'll
Swim.
figure something out. Maybe we'll just do a this meets that. We keep promising that. We need to just do another this meets that.
We just need to bang out like 8 This Meets That.
Okay, next week we'll do a bunch of this means that episodes. We'll do like 3. That's like 9 movie pitches for us to do.
Okay.
We'll knock it all out, and then we'll release one for that week. I'll put the other ones in the tank for backup, and then we'll just wait till something better comes out.
Remind me because I don't want to like on the fly pick movies.
Yeah, do a little bit of
I'll do a little bit of go on the IMDb or something and just or random movie generator until I find like nine
okay,
movies. Like, oh, you
because
know what? This would be a fun one.
I'm pretty sure. Let me just double check.
And then I'll label them 1 through 9 or whatever, and then we'll roll a D10, or we'll pick 10 movies because we'll have a backup.
Okay, that's cool.
And roll a D10, and that's what we'll choose.
I'll update the list and I'll send it to you so you know what we have done.
Cool.
All right. Well, if you want to get in contact with us, we are at WRPL podcast at gmail.com. We're on Instagram. We're on TikTok. We're on Threads. I only made like one post on Threads. I didn't even like post our top
I don't even know
10.
what Threads is.
It's Instagram's Twitter. It's Twitter run by Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not interesting. Like I've been on it, like scrolling to like just read other things. It's not as interesting, but I also don't like follow the same people I had on Twitter. But whatever. I really should post our top tens on TikTok, but whatever. So go ahead and reach out to us. Let us know what you thought about Iron Claw. As always, I'm Ben,
And I'm Steve.
and hashtag Zac Efron for He-Man.